All right, I believe we are ready for our last presenter of the day. And Mr. Lindquist, are you with us?
Okay, very good. We're going to talk about hay markets real quick here, and hopefully if Phil and Cable are delivering pizza to everybody can stay on board with us. Hay markets for this upcoming year is the topic, and we'll try to get to those as best we can. First, let's look at the national scene. And nationally, last year, we produced about 52 million acres of hay across the country, and that was a slight decrease, but it was less than 1% less than the year before. The yield nationally was 2.43 ton per acre, and that was down from 2.46. And remember, these are all types of alfalfa, grass, acres, so it won't be the yields that Phil was talking about. And also it's from Montana and North Dakota and the UP of Michigan down to Alabama and Florida. So quite a range in growing conditions. So nationally, with lower acres and lower yields, the total production of hay was down 1.6% in the country. And then if we look at the December hay stocks in the country, they were down by 84 million ton, which is less still than 1% from normal. These December hay stocks, twice a year, the USDA surveys how much hay is stored on farms, and this is just dry hay. So December is the end of the harvest season and really the beginning of the feeding season. And then they also survey in the spring and May, usually the end of the feeding season and the beginning of the harvest season. So looking at December hay stocks across the country and looking back over the past 20 years, you can see this slide shows a very prominent downward trend. There's less farms, there's less acres of hay across the country, and we continue to trend downward. And hopefully maybe a little more production on those acres that remain. Looking at the states individually, on looking at their hay stocks in December, from 2019 to this past year of 2020, if you go over to the right-hand column, many over here are in the red, meaning that they have lost or dropped from the previous year. And you can see Michigan, we're down 3.2%. If you're looking for states with more hay, it's mainly the highway I-80 states out west of us: Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, and especially Illinois was up 33% from the previous year. And Indiana and Ohio are also up. You have to get out east to Pennsylvania where they dropped down. They were down 14% from the previous year. But overall, nationally, again, less than a 1% difference change, a decrease, but very slight in hay stocks. Then let's look at Michigan. This last year, we harvested approximately 780,000 acres. And this is down. This is back in 2017. The survey results showed that we harvested over 900,000 acres. So this, to me, is significant. There's probably other factors involved, maybe less farms, and in particular, maybe less dairy farms. There's not necessarily less dairy cows, because it's usually the smaller dairy farms that are going out of business during the past few years, but the larger farms continue to grow and maintain cow numbers. Also, maybe it's a change of acres. Maybe corn and soybeans are taking over some of the hay acres. And maybe it's things like the drought of 2012 taught our beef operations that we can feed other forage products beyond just hay. And maybe we're able to graze longer in the fall on some of these cover crop mixes that have become so popular. And also that drought taught us that we can feed corn stalk bales. And if you go online on Facebook or on Craigslist, you'll find a lot of corn stalk bales for sale in the state of Michigan. So maybe these acres aren't quite as significant, but it is a downward trend, and I think they are. I think there's a number of reasons why these acres are down, but part of it is there's just a lower supply of hay in this state. Our yield last year over all those hay types was 2.56 tons per acre, and our alfalfa yield in the state of Michigan was 2.8 tons per acre. But there's probably still room for improvement, as Phil talks about. There's financial gain if you can get better yields. Totally forage production, including the silages, the corn silages, and our hay production, was down 21% in the state. So overall forage production was probably down a little bit more than hay production was, but this makes for a tight hay supply. So what will impact our hay prices in this upcoming year, especially in the summer and the fall? Well, the green highlighted items here, I think, are going to be caused to cause the hay price to increase. That could be things like the increasing price of the corn and soybean markets right now. We're seeing better milk prices in this year than we have the last few years. And with some government payment supports, there's a little more pocket in our dairy farms wallet than before. Increasing dairy cow numbers. We're not decreasing cow numbers across the nation and in the state. They're still maintaining and increasing a little bit with the better milk price. And also the fewer acres in hay especially could lead to some positive hay prices in this upcoming year. In blue are the factors that may negatively impact it. Well, beef prices aren't, they're just mediocre right now, nothing real strong for profitability. There are decreasing beef cow numbers across the U.S., but in Michigan, our beef cow numbers especially have increased over this past year. And of course, one of the biggest factors is what will the weather be this year, and that's the one we don't know yet. We can look at the drought monitor maps, and I would encourage you to do this online if you don't, to see where maybe if these areas start turning green, that's a sign that they're getting ample rainfall and yields may be better if it's in the growing season. But if they're yellow or red, like they are out there in Southwest Michigan or Southwest U.S. right now, that's an indicator that there's going to be the potential for some dry conditions out there as they start their harvest season. So let's look at current prices. And these are some prices that I've surveyed. I'll show you all my sources at the end of this talk that I utilize. But basically, this is dairy quality hay, prime grade. That's 20% crude protein, 30% ADF, 40 NDF, 150 RFV, and 175 RFQ. Average prices, and we got some ranges here because it's a tight market and people are able to get their asking price a little bit more. But they're ranging for the square bales, the small squares, and the large squares from $200 to $315 per ton. And normally the small squares go at the higher end, the larger squares go at the smaller end of this range. Some of those small squares are selling right now for over $375 per ton. So they're getting upwards of $8, $9, $10 per bale for a small square bale. For round bales of this high quality grade, you don't find a lot of those, but the ones that are selling are going in the 140 to the 180 range. Stepping down to the legume grass mixed hays, you can see the nutrient test on average for what this mixture of hay would sell for. But those average prices for the squares, again, are 180 to 250 per ton. And for the round bales, it's about $105 to $175 per ton. And the grass hays, very little legume left in those. They're selling on the square bale markets. This is not a horse quality hay yet. I'll do those on the next slide. But the grasses are going for about 90 to 165 per ton for the small and big squares. And for the rounds, about 80 to 110. So at the lower end, those rounds might be selling for $40 a bale if it's a 1,000-pound bale. But that's about the cheapest you're going to find it anywhere. And those prices continue to go up as more of these hays are finally sold out. And those horse markets, if it is mold-free, dust-free, a grass that is preferably lower in sugar content, those are some of the premium markets if you can tap into those. Those prices are averaging for the small square bales from $200 to $400 per ton. And you just don't find many. A few of you producers that are online do market large squares to the horse market and do well with that. but you don't find enough to really get a market price on those. So I would encourage you to check out the Michigan Hay Sellers list at this website address that Phil monitors and or moderates. And that, if you want to sell hay or if you want to buy hay, you can get some asking prices on there. These are the other lists and reports that I utilize, including the Michigan list, Wisconsin quality tested market reports, and then some Michigan auction markets. I like to follow the Marlette one. They do a good weekly report. Michigan Farm Trader looking at the classified ads that people are asking for their hay. And Facebook is becoming very prominent now with some apps that the Michigan one is the Michigan Hay Sale and Search app. And many of you guys that are on here today do have hay listed on there, I see. And then finally, I want to give credit to many of the Michigan 4-H Council Board of Directors that replied to my survey. This gives me a good analysis from across the state, from the UP to right down on the southern state line, about what markets and supply availabilities are. So all of these individuals did respond to my survey work that I did here in the last month. So Cable, with that, that is my report on the hay markets.
Okay.
Hopefully that pizza got delivered.
Yeah, the pizza. I don't know if you guys are enjoying it, but I am here. Actually,
Yeah, I bet you and Phil are, yeah.
actually, it's not pizza here in Gladwin, it's steaks. So I'm sorry that you're not actually having the steak fry that we're having. Can you go ahead and stop sharing your screen? Perfect.
Yeah.
If you have questions for Mr. Lindquist, please put them in the chat. I don't see any, Jerry, so you must have done a good enough job giving everybody information that they don't have any questions.
I think they're all chowing too.
Hopefully Mr. Carmichael's not, because I'm about ready to turn the meeting over to Mr. Carmichael for his closing remarks. Unless Mr. Cates, am I missing anything?
I don't think so. Let's go right to the.
I do have one question that just came in from Jason. Jerry, do you have a guess for the I-80 states steep increases?
Yeah, it's got to, I'm sure it's got to be basically weather conditions that they got. I failed to mention in Michigan, we got hit by cold weather in May that we had some frost that set back some of the orchard grasses, especially, and the alfalfas. So first cutting yields weren't as strong for us. And then we got dry in August and September. And I think many of those rain fronts, I don't think they got hit by frost down there as much, but those rain fronts in August were going south of us. And I think they just got a little more moisture and were able to harvest more. Illinois surprises me, but.
That's it, Phil. So thank you, Jerry.